Hello YouTube, Ronan Kazi. Now for something different. Long promised, finally delivered. Something really different. So I was going to do this video with a fellow YouTuber. For whatever reason, they weren't able to do it. So I'm still going to go ahead and do part of what they were going to talk about. And it's going to be about cloning. And I will make sure that there's links for all of this because I don't have a horse in this. I don't care either way, true, bad, indifferent, whatever. I'm just going to show you what my research says. This is out there. I'm not endorsing it or dispelling it in any case, just reporting it, I guess. So number one, there's a conspiracy theory that Eminem was cloned in 2006. He died because his voice now sounds different. His lyrics have changed in their tone, and his jawline has changed dramatically over the years. If that's not enough, there's conspiracy about Avril Lavigne, Taylor Swift, Tupac Shakur, Keanu Reeves, Beyonce, among others that have clones. And not to say, this is slightly off topic on this, but there's also artificial intelligence deep fakes that people use. For example, there was a quote-unquote interview with Michael Schumacher, as you know, was injured and has been in a coma, and his responses and voice were generated by an AI. And they asked them to not do that. The people got fired that were doing it. Number two, Tom Brady had the same thing happen to him. And there was a show called Dudesy, and they were given a cease and desist to stop using his likeness. And again, that's whether Tom Brady is alive or not, someone quote-unquote cloned him for social media to do AI and that kind of stuff. So that kind of happens. But we're talking about the real cloning. So the first thing we're going to talk about is there's at least 3 problems. There's a bunch of factors, but we're going to talk about 3 of the problems real quick. The essence of the process, or, you know, what it is, it denies the human reproduction process, right? So it pulls the humans out of that, and it's a completely lab-based, fabricated way to do the reproduction, which is against the natural way we do it now. Number 2 is the safety of it. We can't control it. You know, there's, as I'm going to talk about here in the future of this, there's a lot of failure in it. So what do we do about that? And finally, the third thing is it's contrary to equality. Why should someone's DNA be put up more than anyone else's DNA? What if the person that has the money to pay to reproduce their DNA, why are they allowed to do that in such a manner that their DNA may spread or whatever? It's not something that we all can do. You might argue that a person can do that naturally with a family, just having a bunch of kids and, you know, spreading their progeny all over the place that way. And that's a different talk for a different time. So when we get right down to it, those are some of the issues. There's some of the ethics of it. There's low survival rates of the clones and in that process, which is horrible. If we have a problem with abortion, you can imagine, when is a clone a person in development of all this? What does religion have to say on it? Whether you believe in vaccines or not? How are we testing whether these animals that might get in the food supply, how do we know what they're doing? There's no studies on that. So there's a lot of ethical questions as well. And finally, getting to the nuts and bolts of cloning. When I was growing up, a sheep was cloned in 1996, say almost 30 years ago. Maybe I wasn't growing up, I was a young man. And I didn't follow up where that went, and I thought it ended with that sheep. And I know you've heard of, maybe you haven't, there's a technology called CRISPR. It's where you can modify genes. And there was a story about a Chinese scientist that did it with a pair of twins. And that's really, we're not sure about the ethical part of that. But even further, if we're cloning a whole person, not just doing the genes, but the whole person, and what the success rate of cloning animals, there hasn't been a lot of that I saw in the mainstream, but once I did a research, I'm going to show you the papers that are all cited and give you all the information on that. And there's been quite a few that I didn't realize. So just to go over that, I'm redoing this because I got a phone call a couple of seconds ago, but basically 1996, 97, Dolly the sheep. Then in 98, there was a mouse, 2003, a rat, 2002, a cat, 2005, a dog, 2011, a dog, 2007, a wolf, 2003, a horse, 2016, a horse, 2020, a rabbit, 2020, a black-footed ferret, 2021, dromedary camel, 2020, Przewalski's horse, and 2019, crab-eating macaque, which is a macaque, it's a type of monkey, I believe. So they are cloning things for sure. Now, since it's, in some of the literature I've read here, it's unethical to clone farm animals in the UK and England. And we don't touch on any of the human cloning. Doesn't mean it's not done. What I want you to consider, though, if it started in 1996, that's, so let's say maybe by, and there was a lot of literature, when you search on this at first, there's a lot of literature on cloning from 1998 to 2007. I found a lot of literature. I didn't really find anything modern. I redid my scope to do it since 2020. And so I got some better selections, but I don't see anything where they're saying they're not testing, not making clones of people or not. But let's say they were successful starting in 2010. So maybe a clone's going to be 10 or 12 years old. So how would you know who to clone 10 or 12 years ago? They'd be 10 or 12 now. That's a different thing in the science fiction, whether we're accelerating the growth. So the person clones himself and they're cloning limbs. Does the clone have to, I don't know any of these answers. Does a clone have to grow to be 20 to use the limbs or whatever? I know what sci-fi, what it is in the stories, but I don't know what it is in real life because I don't know if they do it or not. But I will get back to, right, that's the argument that Eminem had a clone in 2006. So let's say they could clone that in 2000, a person in 2006, or maybe they kept trying. Could be conceivable, but the clone might be 20 years old. So does Eminem look younger? Does his voice? So that's the thing. If in 2006 he died, well, they would have had to clone him, whenever. 1996, did Eminem, was he alive? I don't know all of those things. Doesn't mean that it's not there. Do they have a process to age you faster? Like, they could put you in a microwave and zing you up to the future. I don't know. But here's a couple of things about all conspiracies, about everything. And I like to say this. There is some truth to cloning. When you read the research in these articles, what you'll find is some of these animals lived a long time. Some of these people cloned their pets and they lived a long time. Some of those clones then had, quote unquote, normal offspring. So it is possible. Did people try it in humans? I'm going to say it's unethical, but think about all the things we've done that are unethical as modern societies, going back to World War II, if you want to. There's certainly things that the German Nazis did. There's things that the Japanese did that were unethical. There's things that the United States did that were unethical. There's things that each one of these countries have done that is unethical. And so I'm not here to discuss that. We're just discussing, is Eminem a clone? I might need a clone after the skydive. Nope, I won't. But it's interesting to think about. And this is what I'd like you to consider. Maybe Eminem is not a clone, but maybe they can clone other people. Maybe someone was famous 20 years ago and they cloned them, and now they could, I don't know, do what with them. But if you're a person that believes in some types of conspiracy, and if you think about that the government is introducing all these UFOs to us to kind of get us ready for that a UFO is coming, what about with the cloning? Is that why this is coming out? Is that why it's out in the mainstream? Are any ideas floated? We know that that's one style of convincing people. You float an idea and then you put it out there so people so it gets normalized. And that word normalized gets weaponized all over the place. And literally, this is a can of worms that we're opening with this. I didn't really want to talk about this much. This was really something that this other YouTuber was going to talk about. And I was just going to kind of be here and ask my questions. But I did a little bit of research, not proving or disproving. There's literature on cloning. It's a real thing, unless I'm getting played by the internet. But are they cloning celebrities? Well, they can clone their voice. I'll put a link to the article where they're cloning Tom Brady's voice in an ad, and Michael Schumacher, and I'm sure there's other things similar to that. So on one hand, we're doing it digitally. We can clone animals. We're an animal. It doesn't necessarily follow that they can clone us. But there's nothing to stop people from trying. And if people have enough money, who knows what they're doing. So I don't know. And I'm not going to judge whether the Eminem article that he is a clone or any of the other people I mentioned. Just that's out there. So YouTube, what do you think? I know you come here for gaming. I told you I'm branching off a little bit. This is one of the areas. I probably won't entertain everyone, but I had a discussion with this person. I thought it was interesting. I'd like to share their ideas. I'm not the arbiter of the gatekeeper of what's, I don't know. It's just like builds. Everyone has an idea about what build is the best build. And there's no right or wrong thing. It's what works for you. If this kind of works for you, if it's entertaining to you, that's fine. I'm down for entertaining people. If this is something that if you're ashamed of me, YouTube, please let me know if you're ashamed of me for doing this. But I thought I'd give you something different. And I'm going to leave you with some skydiving, because that is my favorite part of Ghost Recon games, is to skydive. And I'm not skydiving anywhere. Maybe I'm skydiving to Clone Island. Thank you, YouTube. Bye.